When I asked her if she was cheating, she didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She smirked. That smug, calculated, soul-crushing smirk that said everything I needed to know without a single word. It was the kind of look you give someone when you know you've already won, when you no longer care how much it hurts them. And in that moment, something inside me fractured in a way I didn't know was possible. Her name is Celeste. On the outside, she's perfect. A woman people turn to look at when she walks into a room. Brilliant attorney, always dressed to kill, always speaking just loud enough to be heard, and just clever enough to sound right. People adored her confidence. I used to, before I realized what it was masking. We've been together nearly 10 years. No kids. I supported her through law school, put my own ambitions on hold so she could build hers. I stayed up waiting during her late-night strategy meetings. I folded her dry-cleaned blazers. I memorized her coffee order. I tolerated the sighs when I asked about her day and the silent treatment when I didn't. And even then, I begged myself not to suspect her, because suspicion would mean the dream was over, and I wasn't ready for that. I told myself I was lucky, that she was just tired, that maybe I wasn't trying hard enough to keep her attention. I read books about rekindling connection. I cooked her favorite meals. I bought tickets to shows she used to love. But nothing worked. And then came that dinner. We sat across from each other like two strangers playing house. She scrolled through her phone, barely acknowledging my presence. I pushed the fork around my plate, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. And then I asked it, the question that had been eating me alive for months. "Are you seeing someone else?" She looked up, blinked once, and smirked. No words, just that look. She stood up, said she had an early day, and walked away, her heels clicking down the hall like a clock counting down my dignity. I sat there for over an hour, staring at the half-empty wine glass, listening to the silent screen. But I didn't cry that night, not like before. Instead, I got up, turned off the lights, and started planning. See, Celeste had been talking for weeks about this gala her firm was hosting, a massive corporate event. Politicians, investors, donors. She was thrilled about it. Bought a new dress, got her nails done, practiced her speech, but she never invited me. She said, "It's not really your scene." And that was fine with me because I had my own plan. There's someone from my past, Marissa. A woman Celeste always envied, though she'd never admit it. We dated briefly in college, stayed friends. Marissa's the kind of woman who doesn't need to speak to command attention. She just walks into a room and gravity shifts. Celeste couldn't stand being around her, so I reached out. I told Marissa the truth, everything. She didn't hesitate. She said, "Let's remind her what being invisible feels like." I rented a tux, booked a driver, got tickets through a contact at Celeste's firm, and on the night of the gala, the night she thought she'd own the spotlight, I walked in with Marissa on my arm. Heads turned, cameras flashed. I saw Celeste's eyes land on us from across the room. And for the first time in years, she looked small. But that was just the beginning. The moment we stepped into the ballroom, it was like a cinematic switch flipped. The chatter dimmed, necks turned, and I felt eyes dart in our direction. Not because of me. I was just the man in a black suit. But Marissa, she wasn't just stunning. She was magnetic, dressed in a deep emerald gown that hugged her perfectly. She walked with this effortless elegance that made people stop mid-sentence. She wasn't loud. She didn't pose. She didn't need to. And Celeste saw her immediately. She was standing by the bar with her colleagues, polished, posed, laughing too loudly. But her expression cracked the second she recognized who was on my arm. Her laugh cut short, her posture stiffened. I watched her eyes travel from Marissa to me and then back again. For the first time since that awful smirk at dinner, I saw something new on her face. Panic. She didn't come over right away. She stood still, sipping her drink, trying to act unaffected while clearly recalibrating the social dynamic she thought she controlled. I didn't approach her either. I had no intention of confronting her in some dramatic public scene. That would have given her power, turned me into the bitter husband. No, I wanted her to watch, to feel what it was like to be the one left out, the one dismissed, the one whose name wasn't whispered admiringly. Marissa played it perfectly. She wasn't flirtatious. She didn't cling to me. She treated me like someone she respected, someone she was proud to be seen with, and that more than anything made me feel human again. We spoke with donors. We met one of the firm's board members, and I even caught someone assuming Marissa was the guest of honor. Celeste's expression curdled with every passing minute. Then something unexpected happened. I was approached by a man I didn't know. Mid-40s, expensive watch, smug confidence. "You're Nathan, right? Celeste's husband," he said, extending his hand. I nodded cautiously. "Graham," he introduced himself. "I've heard quite a bit about you." The way he said it, it wasn't a compliment. Something in his tone smacked of ownership, like I was some character in a story he'd already rewritten in his favor. That's when I knew. This was him. The man she was seeing behind my back. My mouth went dry, but I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I finally had a face to match the betrayal. He looked me up and down as if trying to figure out what she ever saw in me. Then, with a smirk nearly identical to hers, he added, "Bold move, bringing her here." I glanced at Celeste. She was watching us now, unable to look away. Her world was unraveling, and she knew it. So I leaned in and calmly replied, "You have no idea how bold it's about to get." And I meant it because the gala wasn't the climax. It was the ignition. What came next, the emails I had, the documents Anthony recovered, the transfers, the client meetings they turned into hotel bookings, that was the real show. I had spent weeks preparing not just to confront, but to expose, not to hurt her. No, that wasn't my goal. My goal was to never again let someone reduce me to silence with a smirk. That night, as we left the gala, Marissa slipped her hand into mine and said, "You didn't even have to say a word. She'll remember this forever." And she was right. But the real storm hadn't even started yet. Celeste didn't come home that night. That wasn't a surprise. She hadn't been coming home regularly for a while. Always some excuse. Late client calls, after-hour strategy sessions, sudden out-of-town meetings that she'd forget to mention until an hour before. But this time I wasn't waiting by the door. I didn't text her. I didn't ask where she was or what happened at the gala. I knew she was unraveling. That was the point. I'd let her sit in it. I'd spent too many nights alone in that house. Lights dimmed. Microwave humming with food gone cold. While she laughed in some hotel bar with a man who smirked like she did. But not anymore. While she spiraled, I was organizing meticulously. The next morning, I was already 3 steps ahead. I emailed Anthony a list of search terms and usernames, things only I would know from watching Celeste over the years. Little details she never thought I noticed. Password fragments she used, recovery questions she'd mentioned in passing. It wasn't enough to prove the affair. I wanted a trail. Something undeniable, something corporate. Because here's what she didn't know. The man she was seeing, Graham, wasn't just some harmless fling. He was on the board of a major firm that frequently partnered with Celeste's office. They had contracts, NDAs, and the data Anthony pulled from their interactions, messages, timestamps, overlapping business travel logs. It was damning. It was also enough to get her fired. I wasn't planning on sending it to her boss yet. First, I wanted answers. I wanted to understand just how deep the betrayal ran. Not just romantically, but financially, too. And that's when I found it. A transfer, $14,900 from our joint savings, masked as a strategic investment under her personal LLC. I hadn't noticed it before because the account had been dormant for months, and she knew I barely checked it. But there it was, moved discreetly 2 weeks earlier, the same weekend she claimed she was at a legal retreat in Austin. I remember because I stayed home with a stomach bug and she didn't call once. That money, it didn't go to any business. It went to a condo, a short-term lease, a place registered under Graham's assistant's name. The cowardice of it all stunned me. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. That numb kind of shock where your brain keeps whispering, "No, there's some other explanation," even though you know there isn't. I could feel my heart pounding in my neck, my palms sweating, my ears ringing. But through it all, I stayed calm. I wasn't going to lose control again. She came home the next evening. Hair pulled up like she'd been trying to fix herself in the car. Makeup slightly smudged. smelling like someone else's cologne. She walked in pretending nothing had happened, like the gala never existed, like she hadn't seen me show up with someone who made her shrink into the wallpaper. I watched her drop her purse on the table. She didn't even look at me, just said, "Do we have any leftovers?" I didn't respond. She turned around, finally meeting my eyes, and asked, "What?" I smiled, calm, quiet, measured. "I think we should have dinner tomorrow somewhere nice. You choose the place." She narrowed her eyes. "Why?" I shrugged. "I just feel like talking." She hesitated. That flicker of suspicion danced across her face, but she forced it down. "Fine," she said. "I'll make a reservation." She thought she was still in control, but she had no idea that I had already invited someone else to dinner. 2. The waiter would be bringing more than just menus. The reservation was at a quiet, upscale place in Midtown, one of those restaurants that's dimly lit and pretentious, where the water comes in glass bottles and every appetizer has some kind of foam. Celeste chose it, of course. It was the kind of place she loved, where she could look polished under chandeliers and feel important by ordering in a tone that sounded like she was doing everyone a favor. I let her pick it. I wanted her to feel comfortable, stable, just long enough for the walls to close in. She didn't dress for a casual dinner. She wore that crimson wrap dress I bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago, the one she, accidentally, left in her gym bag for 6 months. Her makeup was perfect. Hair curled just the way she knew I used to like. For the first time in a long while, she tried. That told me 2 things. She knew something was off and she was afraid of losing control. We ordered drinks first. I got an old-fashioned. She ordered white wine. We made polite small talk. The weather, her work, nothing real. She told me about a challenging case, pretending like I didn't know she had been spending late hours in a condo with another man. I nodded and smiled, even threw in a couple of supportive comments. She was warming up, letting her guard down. That was my opening. As we finished our appetizers, I pulled a small envelope from my jacket and placed it on the table beside my drink. She stared at it, then at me. "What's this?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just said, "Open it." She slowly slid her manicured nails under the flap and pulled out the printouts. Her fingers froze the moment her eyes landed on the first page. Phone records, hotel bookings, email confirmations, screenshots of her messages to Graham, not romantic ones, but logistical ones. Booking meetings that didn't exist, setting up times that aligned with his travel, a carefully documented pattern of a relationship she thought she was smart enough to hide. Her face didn't go red. It went pale, like blood had drained from her completely. She blinked once, twice, then slowly stacked the pages, forcing her hands not to shake. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "Does it matter?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "You made your choices. I made mine." She looked around the restaurant like someone trapped in a spotlight. "We're not doing this here," she hissed. "Oh, we are," I said, leaning in, "because I want you to remember the exact table where your facade shattered. I want you to remember how you wore that dress thinking it would distract me, but you forgot I already saw you wear it for him." She opened her mouth to say something. Maybe a lie, maybe an apology, maybe just another smirk, but the waiter came over. "Are we ready for dessert?" he asked cheerfully. I looked at Celeste. "Actually, yes. I think she'll want something sweet before I ruin her appetite." The waiter froze, sensing the tension, but I waved him off with a fake smile. "Just give us a minute." Celeste exhaled, hands trembling now. "So what? You're going to leave me? Humiliate me?" "No," I said. "I'm going to walk away with dignity. You, on the other hand, are about to lose yours. Because this," I tapped the stack of evidence, "isn't even the worst of it." She looked confused. "You forgot about the money, Celeste." And just like that, her confidence completely broke. "I found the transfers, the lease, the shell account. You stole from our future to fund your fantasy." She opened her mouth again, but no sound came out. "I'm not going to shout. I'm not going to make a scene. But tomorrow morning, my lawyer is going to send everything to your firm, to the ethics board, and to Graham's wife." She blinked, stunned. "You know she's pregnant?" "Yeah, found that out last night." She deserves the truth, too. Celeste buried her face in her hands. For the first time since this entire mess began, I saw her truly collapse under the weight of her own lies. I didn't feel satisfaction, not pride, just relief. Like the fog I'd been living in finally cleared. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and dropped a few bills on the table. Stay. Finish dessert. I'm done being the invisible one. Then I walked out and left her there, staring at the pieces of the life she chose to destroy. I didn't go home after that dinner. Couldn't. The thought of walking back into that house, our house, and pretending it hadn't all crumbled made my stomach turn. Instead, I checked into a small business hotel just outside the city. Nothing fancy, nothing emotional, just distance, space to breathe. I sat on the edge of the unfamiliar bed, shoes still on, tie still tied around my neck, staring at the blank TV screen for what felt like an hour before I even moved. It wasn't the sadness that overwhelmed me. It was the sheer weight of everything I'd been carrying finally sliding off my shoulders. Quietly, heavily, but it was gone. The next morning, I started what would become a very calculated unraveling. While Celeste likely spent the night spinning stories in her head, trying to strategize, to minimize, to salvage whatever image she had left, I got to work. I contacted my lawyer and handed over everything. The financial records, the condo lease, the messages. He didn't even flinch. Just looked at me and said, "This is going to be cleaner than she thinks." That word, cleaner, stuck with me because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about detox, removing the poison I'd been drinking for years, pretending it was love. By midday, the notifications began. Celeste texted first, "We need to talk, please." Then came a call. I let it ring. Another message followed. "I made a mistake." Panicked. "Can we meet?" I didn't reply. I wasn't being cruel. I was giving her what she gave me for years. Silence. I needed to be strategic now. She wasn't going to go quietly. She never did anything without a plan. And I could feel her scrambling behind the scenes. I called our bank and froze the remaining joint accounts. Moved my paychecks into a separate one. Notified the leasing agent of the condo that I'd be vacating soon, alone. Every step I took was one step further from the man I had been. The quiet, accommodating version of myself who lived under her shadow. Later that week, I met with Marissa again, not romantically, just as someone who had witnessed it all, who reminded me that I wasn't imagining things. She asked how it all went down, and I told her everything. The dinner, the documents, the look on Celeste's face when the truth finally hit her. Marissa was quiet for a while, then asked me something no one had dared ask before. "Do you still love her?" I sat there for a long moment. I didn't know how to answer, not because I was unsure, but because I'd never had the space to consider the question without guilt attached. Did I still love Celeste? Or did I just love who I thought she was? "I think I love the version of her that existed only in my head," I finally said. She nodded. "And now," I said, "I'm trying to love the version of me that I forgot about." That night, Celeste showed up at my hotel. I didn't give her the address. She must have dug through emails or checked my calendar. She looked tired, smaller, no makeup, dressed in a simple hoodie and jeans like she was trying to unpolish herself into someone I'd feel sorry for. "Nathan," she said as I opened the door. I didn't say anything. I didn't invite her in. "I just want to talk." Still silent. "I know I messed up, but you ambushed me. You embarrassed me." I raised an eyebrow. "You embarrassed me." That's what she led with. No apology, no ownership, just her discomfort at being held accountable. "Do you want me to say sorry?" she asked sharply. I let out the smallest laugh, dry, bitter, exhausted. "No, Celeste, I want you to say something real. I want to know if you ever, even for a second, respected me." That stopped her. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out because we both knew the answer. I closed the door, and this time I didn't feel anything at all. The days that followed were strangely quiet, like the eye of a storm. Not the calm kind, the tense, suffocating kind that lets you know it's not over. Celeste went silent. No more texts, no more unexpected appearances. I wasn't naive enough to think she'd given up. She was just recalculating, trying to find a new angle. That was her way. Never confront directly. Always manipulate the air around her until you choked yourself without even knowing she'd touched you. I had moved most of my things into a temporary studio apartment I found near the edge of downtown. It wasn't glamorous. In fact, it was barely furnished, but it was mine. No more scent of her perfume lingering on throw pillows. No more hearing her voice in every hallway. Just silence. And it was the first time in years that silence didn't feel like punishment. That Monday morning, the real unraveling began. I got a call from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Then another, this time from Anthony. When I picked up, he sounded almost amused. "Check your inbox," he said. And it was a forwarded message from someone inside Celeste's law firm. An internal memo, confidential, stating that an ethics committee had been formed to look into inappropriate conduct involving a senior associate and an external party who served as a consultant for multiple cases. No names, of course, just vague enough to avoid lawsuits, but we both knew it was her. Graham had been listed as a corporate advisor on 3 high-profile cases Celeste worked on. The financial ties, now exposed by the records I handed over to my lawyer, had triggered a formal review. In that world, even a hint of impropriety is enough to freeze a promotion or end a career. Celeste wasn't just losing me. She was losing the thing she worshipped more than our marriage, her reputation. The next day, she emailed me. The subject line was blank. The message itself was short. "Can we please meet just for 10 minutes? I need to explain something before it's too late." No emotion, no apology, just strategy. I didn't respond. That same afternoon, Graham's wife reached out. Her message was long, composed, terrifyingly calm. She thanked me for the evidence, told me she'd suspected things for months, said she was 6 months pregnant, and that she planned to raise the baby alone now. She didn't ask for sympathy, just thanked me for being the first honest person in this entire mess. That one hit harder than anything Celeste ever said because it reminded me that I wasn't the only one wrecked by this. There were ripple effects. Innocent people swept up in their little power game. That child would be born into a storm its parents created out of selfishness and entitlement. That evening, Celeste's mother called me. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. She sounded shaken. "She told me everything, Nathan," she said. She's not herself." I wanted to laugh. Not herself. I almost told her that Celeste had always been exactly who she was. The rest of us just wanted so badly to believe in the version she showed us. Instead, I simply said, "I hope she figures herself out," because I wasn't going to do it for her anymore. The truth is, I didn't hate her. I didn't even want to destroy her, but I wasn't going to protect her image at the cost of my sanity. I had done that for too long. And now, with every consequence she faced, I felt a strange peace setting in. Not revenge, not victory, just finally being free from pretending. By the end of that week, everything Celeste had spent years building was beginning to collapse around her. I didn't need to push it anymore. Gravity was doing the work. Her firm was reviewing her performance, which was code for, "We're collecting documentation to justify letting you go without risking a lawsuit." Her relationship with Graham had imploded in the worst way possible. His wife had served him with legal papers and moved in with her parents. Apparently, she'd sent screenshots of Celeste's messages to multiple people in their social circle, including his supervisor and board members. A quiet scandal was turning into a firestorm, and Celeste, for the first time, had no script prepared. But what truly surprised me wasn't how fast her world unraveled. It was how desperate she became once it started. It began with a voicemail. She sounded exhausted, tearful, but also oddly formal. "Nathan, I know you probably won't believe anything I say anymore, but I really didn't plan for this to go this far. I didn't expect to fall for someone else. I didn't expect you to find out this way. I need to talk to you, not to fix it. Just, I need you to know something." I didn't call back. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd stopped giving her power over my peace. Then came the letter, handwritten, 8 pages, neatly folded, left at the front desk of the studio I was renting. She hadn't seen me in weeks, And now she was pouring her soul out on lined paper like it was 1998. She wrote about how she'd been scared of turning into her mother, how she felt invisible in the relationship, how Graham made her feel alive again, but also trapped, and how she knew what she'd done was beyond forgiveness. She wrote that she couldn't look in the mirror without seeing the woman who destroyed the only person who truly loved her. And for a moment I almost broke because it felt real, honest, vulnerable. But then I read the final line. I still believe we were meant to be, Nathan. I hope you remember that when you're done being angry. That was the line that reminded me why I left. Even in her apology, she was rewriting the narrative. She wasn't taking full responsibility. She was still framing my reaction as the problem, as if my anger was what kept us apart. Not her lies, not her choices, not the months of manipulation, the stolen money, the silence, the smirks, the gaslighting. She didn't miss me. She missed control. I burned the letter, not out of spite, out of clarity. I didn't want it lingering in drawers or boxes years later, making me question if any of this was my fault. I needed finality. A few nights later, I ran into someone who used to work at Celeste's firm, Jessica, a junior associate who always seemed to be on the fringe of their social circle. She spotted me at a bookstore cafe and came over to say hi. I expected awkwardness, maybe pity, but instead she said something I'll never forget. You know, people there used to talk about you like you were the background character in her story, but after everything that happened, it's like the curtain got pulled back. Everyone sees her differently now. She paused. And you walked out with more dignity than I've ever seen. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, smiled a little. I hadn't felt like a person with dignity in a long time, but maybe I was starting to. That weekend, I started boxing up the last of my things from the house. I didn't tell her. I waited until I knew she was gone, then slipped in with a moving crew, took what was mine and left no note behind. The wedding photos? I left those. The couch we bought together? Gone. The ugly vase her aunt gave us that she insisted we display even though I hated it? I smashed it in the trash can out back. Closure doesn't come all at once. Sometimes it's found in the rhythm of packing tape, the thud of a drawer slamming shut, the quiet click of a front door locking behind you one last time. I didn't look back. It's strange, the way healing sneaks up on you. One moment you're sitting alone in a studio apartment surrounded by cardboard boxes and half-folded laundry, unsure if you've made the right decisions, and the next you're halfway through your morning coffee when you realize the heaviness is gone. No sudden moment of epiphany, no dramatic music cue. Just a quiet morning where the air feels lighter and the silence doesn't echo anymore. A few weeks after moving out, I took a road trip. No destination, just my car, an old playlist I hadn't touched in years, and the unfamiliar thrill of not having to explain myself to anyone. I drove through old college towns, small coastal roads, and mountain highways. I stayed in cheap motels and sometimes didn't talk to another soul for a full day. And instead of feeling lonely, I felt present. I started remembering who I was before I let someone else rewrite my worth. One night, somewhere in northern Vermont, I found myself parked in front of a lake just after sunset. The sky was this mix of dark orange and navy blue, and the water was so still it looked like glass. I sat there for an hour, maybe two, and I thought about everything. Celeste, the affair, the dinner, the letter, and then I thought about everything else. The small moments, the way I started sleeping better, laughing more, the new friends I'd made, the way Marissa checked in every so often just to make sure I was still doing okay. I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt rebuilt, slowly, carefully, honestly. Celeste sent one last message a month later. It simply said, "I hope you're doing okay. I really mean that." And maybe she did. Maybe she was finally starting to see the damage, not as something she caused in the moment, but something that had stretched back years. But I didn't reply, not because I was angry, but because I no longer needed anything from her. Not closure, not validation, not an apology. I was already on the other side. A year later, I met someone. Not in a dramatic love-at-first-sight way. Nothing like the movies. Just a conversation in a bookstore. An honest laugh over coffee. A shared appreciation for quiet mornings and bad mystery novels. Her name's Lena. She knows everything. And still she stayed. We take things slow. We talk, really talk, like grown-ups who know what it feels like to be lied to and who now value the truth more than the illusion of perfection. I'm not the same man I was when this started. I'm stronger now, softer in the right places. I don't shrink myself anymore to fit into someone else's narrative. And maybe that's the real win. Not revenge, not punishment, just peace. Real, quiet, unshakable peace. I got my life back, and this time it's mine alone to keep.